Okay. Welcome everyone to NOD's webinar from Deployment to Employment Hiring and Supporting Veterans with Disabilities. My name is Felicia Nurmsen and I am Managing Director of Employer Services for NOD. And I want to welcome everyone to our event. I'll start by describing myself and would like our presenters to do the same. So I am a middle-aged white woman. I have longish blonde hair just below my shoulders. I wear black framed glasses, and today I'm kind of wearing a shirt that has a lot of different colors in it because it is gray and rainy here on the East Coast. Today we will be discussing how businesses can hire and support veterans with disabilities in their workforce. Joining us to moderate the discussion today, I'm very excited to say that Luke Visconti, our chairman and founder of FAIR 360 and NOD's board chair is here rather. Joining him is Jennifer Tracy, Vice President of Talent Attraction and Acquisition at Charter Communications, known through its Spectrum brand, and Ish Escobar, Program Lead at Northrop Grumman's Operation Impact. Allow me to share some housekeeping tips before we get started. First, today's webinar is being recorded. Second, if you wish to see the closed captions for this event and you're not already seeing them appear on screen, please click the live transcript button on your toolbar located at the bottom of the Zoom window. Then select Show Captions. You can also view the captions separately in your browser by clicking the link posted in the chat. As you can already see, we also have an ASL interpreter signing throughout the webinar. Thank you so much for being here. Third, if you would like to submit a question, please click the Q&A button on your toolbar, enter your question into the box, and then click Send. Finally, we will be launching a short survey at the end of the webinar and would appreciate your feedback. We use your responses to improve our programming, and it really is important for us to hear from you and have your thoughts. By way of introduction, the National Organization on Disabilities mission is to increase employment opportunities for people with disabilities. We are the national leader in partnering with business, nonprofits, and government entities through 5 key initiatives. We have our employer services, which I oversee. That is all of our consulting services, our employment tracker, as well as others, data tracking and analysis, which is the core of our initiatives. We look at the data in order to support our organizations, and we continue to change and update our analysis and our questions that we're asking to ensure that we are providing the most pertinent and as well as the most recent leading practices and data to support that. Innovation projects, which we have now. Many of our leadership council members are participating in one of our innovation projects. And if you have not signed up for our engagement survey that will follow tracker completion, then please do. We also have our policy roundtable. That's 15 of the largest disability organizations working together to provide that support and the extra push that we might need as far as those government policies are concerned that really affect all of us with disabilities. And our corporate membership group, the Leadership Council, which is really an excellent benefit, an excellent group for companies to join if you're not already a member. It not only helps you to network with other companies that are very committed to disability inclusion, but also allows you to participate in programs like this, as well as hear from other experts, have access to all of the information and resources that we provide. And again, be very happy to answer any questions that you have after the webinar. I'd like to thank, and most importantly, thank Charter Communications and Northrop Grumman for sponsoring today's webinar. They are also longtime members of the NOD Leadership Council, and their generosity is what really enables us to continue NOD's mission, as well as the generosity of all of our Leadership Council members. Now, I would like to introduce today's moderator, Luke Visconti. Luke.
Thank you, Felicia. And thank you for everyone who is joining us today for a discussion on this important topic. I am a older white man. I have mostly brown hair, a lot of gray stuck in there. I'm wearing reading glasses, a blue striped shirt, and a blue blazer. I'm especially glad to be here today because I'm a veteran myself. I served as a naval aviator for more than 8 years on active duty and another 18 months in the reserves. In addition, I was a member of the Chief of Naval Operations Executive Panel for 10 years and another 4 years as a special advisor to the Chief of Naval Operations on talent development. I live with a disability, although it's not service related. I credit founding DiversityInc, which we have just renamed Fair 360, and my time on NOD's board to the values I learned from my military experience. It was that and the leadership I saw from Martin Luther King Jr. His life and words have had a profound impact on me, and I would not have gotten to know him if it were not for a Black veteran helicopter pilot who mentored me on all of this. So Tony Cato, thank you. Military has been a big part of my life. As for our program, veterans are a large portion of the disability community, and often when we talk about inclusion efforts, we separate veterans from disability. This is not always helpful. With this conversation, we want to focus on diving into their intersection. So here are some high-level statistics on the population. There's 18.4 million veterans in the United States. 4.9 million veterans, or 27% of all veterans, have a service-related disability. 1/3 of veterans with a disability are employed, compared with 3/4 of veterans without disabilities. This discrepancy in employment is why NOD founded its Wounded Warrior Careers Program back in 2007 for injured service people returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. It addressed and helped provide support for the hiring and advancing of careers of veterans with disabilities, augmented by a number of valuable resources. You can still access this information at nod.org/veterans. I'd now like to bring on our guest speakers who will speak about their company's support of veterans with disabilities in the workplace. First, let's welcome Jennifer Tracy. Hello, Jennifer. Could you please describe yourself for our audience and a little bit about your role at Charter?
Sure. I'm Jennifer Tracy, and I am a middle-aged woman, a white woman who has brown hair and brown eyes and wears glasses. I'm wearing a houndstooth black and white jacket for today. And my role within Charter is I oversee the military early career talent attraction, the recruiting technology, and recruitment marketing and branding for our organization, as well as our contingent labor practice.
Ish, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, Luke. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ish Escobar. I'm the program lead for the Operation Impact program at Northrop Grumman. I am a middle-aged Hispanic male, black hair. I am wearing reading glasses, and I'm wearing a blue polo with the Northrop Grumman logo. A little bit about myself and my role. As I mentioned, I lead our Operation Impact program, which is a program specifically designed to help transitioning veterans, but specifically those who have disabilities. You'll hear me talk a little bit more as we go through the questions about what we do, how we do it, and how we support our veterans. So looking forward to the call. Thank you.
Ish, could you describe your veteran experience for us, please?
Absolutely. So I served in the United States Army from May 01 to October of 08. I served as an infantryman. I've been several duty stations, everywhere from Korea, Fort Lewis, Washington, Germany. And then I also did 2 combat tours in Iraq. You'll hear me talk a little bit more about this, but I was actually hired through this very program that I now lead at Northrop Grumman, Operation Impact. And no pun intended in the impact that it's had in my life, not only myself, but of course, my family as a whole, as my wife was also hired through the program and is still currently working at Northrop Grumman. Just celebrated her 15 years actually at Northrop Grumman this last month.
Thank you for your service, Ish.
Thank you.
Let's get started. Both of you come from companies that have a great track record on hiring veterans with disabilities. I'd like to explore that by asking you both, and we'll start with you, Jennifer. How did Charter Communications get started on their Veterans with Disabilities program?
So the Veterans Program specifically started in 2007, which was our legacy Time Warner Cable organization. We recognized that veterans brought a unique skill set to the organization and would bring value to both the company and the veteran community that we already employed. And so from there, we created a dedicated team of military recruiting professionals and also military spouses that are contractors that help us at bases to attract individuals into our organization. And from there, we built on to having our Veterans BRG and also our military outreach and transition programs throughout the organization.
Can you give us, I'm going to go a little bit ahead because you told us information during our prep for this about the success of your program, because I was really amazed at the statistics. I'm not surprised, but it was really impressive.
Yeah. Sure. So at Charter, we actually have an 8% veteran representation at the entire enterprise level. And we at the manager and above level, we're actually at 10%. And we're really, really, really proud of that. For those that are familiar, the OFCCP benchmark is currently, I think, at 5.4%. And it continues to drop because of the declining population of veterans. But the things that are important to know about what we appreciate more about our veterans is they turn over less. So we have an 8% better retention on our veterans than we do with the regular population. And so it's an investment that's smart for Charter from a business perspective, but it's also demonstrating of the skills that they received while they were in the military that come through into our business each and every day.
That's really great information. Thank you, Jennifer. I really, as a veteran, I deeply appreciate what the whole program and what your company's doing. Ish, can we hear about your efforts at Northrop Grumman, please?
Absolutely. So if we go way back, I mean, Northrop's been hiring veterans for ever and ever, it seems like. But our program, specifically Operation Impact, was started in 2005. As we all recall, is the height of the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. It started very small. One of our sectors, at the time, I believe we had 6 sectors. But one of our sectors, their HR office, one person running the program, just to kind of pilot the program to see where it needed to go. Fast forward to 2009, the program was then launched enterprise-wide to where it is right now. So at one point, we've had up to 7 people running or working through the program. And of course, we work very closely with our HR partners, managers, stakeholders, et cetera, making them aware of the program. And up to date, we've helped thousands upon thousands of veterans, not just find employment at Northrop Grumman or some of our partners, but even just assisting them in transitioning out of the military and how to find gainful employment at companies like Northrop Grumman and other companies, et cetera.
Ish, your company has an enormous self-disclosure rate for people with disabilities, which tells me that your programs are viewed with trust by the people who work with Northrop Grumman. Awesome work, really awesome. Thank you. So what have been some of the challenges in getting your programs up and running? And let's start with you, Ish.
Well, I think awareness, right? And then, of course, just selling whatever effort we're trying to put forward. And what do I mean by that? Just convincing the powers to be that this is not only the right thing to do, but a thing that we have to do, not only to support our veterans, but to help those with people with disabilities, et cetera. I think, like many of us, I think that, companies that we work for, sometimes it feels like we get flooded with information. It seems like our inbox is always full of local comms or internal comms, et cetera. So I think that has been one of our biggest challenges, just sort of getting people to, make them aware of such programs, make them aware of such initiatives at our company. So we work very closely, like I mentioned, with stakeholders. One of them being our ERG, which is our Veritas, which is our veteran specific employee resource group. And we work very closely with them, making them aware of whatever effort or whatever campaign, whether it's a self-ID campaign, making them aware to spread the word, not only within their membership, but to also encourage their membership to then share that information with other veterans within our company.
That's awesome. Jennifer, how about the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, so we operate in a very decentralized fashion. So I would echo what Ish has already said, specifically around constant education and reinforcement. So we meet quarterly or biannually with our BRG, both chair and co-chairs, to make sure they understand where our barometer is going, like if our hiring is improving in terms of veteran representation, or where we might need their help. And then they, in part and parcel to this huge volunteer organization, can then help us get the resources we might need if we have an event, and we might have an outreach. And so there's a lot of partnership that happens. But I also leverage our talent acquisition council. So we have 10 different recruiting leaders that are responsible for the hiring at Charter. And I leverage them through awareness and education to make sure they're aware of the different events that we're doing. And then they, in part, give us resources to help us execute all those events.
So you must communicate almost constantly, since there's new people coming on and going off all the time. It's really
Without
important.
question.
Everybody has to realize you have to constantly re-educate. It's just the nature of it.
Yes.
Tracking self-ID is important, yet encouraging veterans to self-ID is challenging. How do you approach those challenges, Ish?
As I mentioned, our ERG is a big part of that. We work very closely with our EEO partners as well to do communications campaigns. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I have encountered when I'm talking to veterans about self-ID is the question, what's in it for me, right? And that's my job, and not only my job, but to encourage those veterans and making them aware as far as this, what's in it for you. This is how we use the data. This is what we use the data for. This is how we all win. As you know, we use the data for even in some of our contracts, right, that we're pursuing. And then, of course, we are mandated by OFCCP to hire a specific number of veterans, and we blow that number out of the water every single year. So we're constantly putting our, that emphasis and that encouragement to veterans to self-ID and letting them know it's a win-win, not just for me and the company, for all of us. And then, of course, any future veteran that will be joining our company as well.
That's a great answer, Jennifer.
So I think when we look at this, a couple of things we've done over the years is not only do you have to educate internally, you have to educate externally. And so one of the things we did during the pandemic was we actually reallocated dollars that were assigned to travel for our military recruiters to hiring these military spouse contractors. And so continuing to have this base presence of someone that's embedded in the community at these 6 different bases throughout the country where we operate gives an automatic outreach to create a sense of familiarity to our organization. But also it's as simple as looking at the questions that are being asked. So obviously there's a questionnaire that the government provides you, but you have to look at it and say, okay, is this really something that someone understands and can answer accurately or correctly? And so we've changed that around, because what we notice is that in some instances, people were answering the question incorrectly just because of the wording and it being incorrect. And so you oftentimes have to look operationally and say, okay, what can I change just a little bit to make sure it's clearer and that people can understand it?
That's a really good point, because I think, Ish, for your answer, anybody who's served knows the perils of volunteering for something is sometimes it's good, but sometimes it's not so good. So you want to make sure that people understand the benefits of it. And I think that the networking and everything, Jennifer, that you're doing, and especially reallocating that budget during COVID to be more effective, that's awesome. How do you promote trust throughout your organization? I think trust is the key part of this. Jennifer, we'll start with you.
So part of it to me is, as we move into this world where AI is probably used in almost every conversation that we have, to me, it is a combination of using tech, but also using the human touch, right? And so with our military recruiting team, as a candidate applies, if they've self-ID'd, we automatically have the system send an email. So we don't see that email. It just goes out to anybody and invites them to talk to one of our military recruiters. They don't have to, but what we see is that we have a stickier conversion rate when a veteran talks to one of our military team members, likely because they're better understanding what the job is, where they want to go, and they can ask questions of our recruiters because they're not the ones hiring these positions. They are a resource for these veterans to talk to, get information on how to interview better, information about our organization so that they can be better prepared. Or even if they want resume advice, we do that as well. And so doing that human touch and technology together is where we found the best success.
You must have great take up on that opportunity. I mean, I know if I were in the somebody's shoes that needed that help, it would be an awesome opportunity to get some advice directly from a person. That's really cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Ish, about trust. How do you promote trust throughout your organization?
For me, the big key is credibility, right? kind of piggyback on Jennifer, we have what we call our Northrop Grumman information sessions. We do them once a month. We send this invite to all transitioning veterans, all transition centers throughout the United States, and we invite them to come and learn about not only Northrop Grumman, but how do you apply for employment? What are some of the benefits that we offer? More importantly, how do we support you? What are some of the resources that we have once you join our company? So that's, pre-hire. Once they're hired, we also launched about 5 years ago, we launched our veteran coin initiative. So right around this time of the year, around Veterans Day, those newly hired veterans will receive a coin. The intent there is, and I'm referring to self-ID veterans, by the way, not just, again, and the intent is, number one, is to recognize them clearly, right? To make them feel welcome into the company and to make them feel that they're part of the team, that they're important, right? And I think that's part of the transition and the assimilation from the military into a corporate environment. And then secondly, it's sort of an added benefit. It also identifies those veterans that haven't self-ID'd, and it gives us an opportunity to then express and educate, as I mentioned, the need or the importance of self-ID. So we will have veterans that say, hey, I was just hired 6 months ago. I didn't get a coin. Well, have you self-ID'd? No, I haven't. Okay, let me tell you why it is important. And then they self-ID, and then of course we'll get a coin over to them. So it's sort of a win-win we found through this wonderful program.
That's a really great idea. I really like that a lot. So next question. How do companies benefit overall with these initiatives? Ish, start with you.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we share this information on our proposals. Maybe I haven't mentioned it. 18% of our employees within our company have been self-ID as veterans. Okay, we think that number is higher, but again, it is a personal choice. We do have veterans that don't want to disclose, and again, that's okay. That's personal choice. But the ones that we do know of, it's 18%, which is a huge chunk of our employee population. And then, of course, there's 8% of veterans with disabilities also within that 18%. So it is even a huge number within itself. And as I mentioned, we share this information within proposals, anything that we're trying to capture. And then, of course, this is information that we do share with other veterans. As I mentioned, our information sessions, we talk about these kind of things where you're coming into a company where you're going to be one of many veterans, right? So it's going to be maybe not easier for you to transition, but there's going to be that support, right? We are familiar with who you are, what you bring to the table, and we're ready to support you as you transition into Northrop Grumman.
That's really great. Jennifer?
Yeah, so what we do for a living is we communicate, or we have to help people communicate, right? So there are so many different jobs that are in the military that are direct translation. So the people that are protecting the network to make sure that internet, we don't have cyber attacks and things like that, that is direct translation out of the military into our business units. And so both our network operations and also our field operations, when you go into a war area, you have to create and set up communication systems. So that's one of the biggest things that we're invested in right now. We're building out RDOF and to build out internet to rural America that doesn't have it today. And so to us, this having veterans in our workforce that have these different experiences than we might do in terms of setting up also gives us other troubleshooting ideas that we would not have had if they weren't in our workforce.
Veterans are good at troubleshooting, that's for sure. That's been my experience. Jennifer, Charter says it recognizes the skills veterans develop during their service. Can you share some of those skills that Charter finds valuable?
Yeah, so when we think about skills, some of them I would say are more soft skills than hard skills. I just talked a little bit about the hard skills, but the soft skills to us are really the craftsmanship, the quality, the dedication, and service orientation that the veterans bring into our business is critical to the interactions that they'll have with our customers, the leadership skills that they get by leading platoons. Those are the things that we value and want to see within our workforce. And so those are the things that matter to us most.
Ish, can you share some examples of accommodations for veterans with disabilities, such as a veteran with post-traumatic stress or a brain injury? And Jennifer, feel free to weigh in.
Sure.
Absolutely. I'm very proud to say that we have a centralized workplace accommodation program within Northrop Grumman. And this is available to all employees, not just veterans. But I'd like to take a moment just to talk specifically about Operation Impact. When we have an Operation Impact candidate accept a job offer from Northrop Grumman, we have a nurse that's assigned to our program 24/7 that provides pre and post employment support. But within 24 hours of offer accept, she's on the phone with that veteran and they start talking about his or her disabilities. She is a dedicated nurse by trade, so no need to worry about violations of HIPAA or anything like that. So she's having those discussions with the veteran. She then turns around and works very closely with our workplace accommodations team, who will then do everything they can to implement that accommodation prior to the employee starting or shortly after the employee has started. We feel it's very important that we level the playing field for our veterans. And to answer your question, Luke, we offer, the sky's the limit. Again, it's a centralized budget. We're not affecting no local budget, no program budget. I've seen everything from noise canceling headphones, rear view mirrors. I've seen people's desks be moved a specific way because they don't want their back perhaps towards a door or a hallway, etc. I really feel that Northrop Grumman really goes above and beyond to ensure that, again, we're leveling the playing field and that people feel that they are included, that they are heard. As I like to say at Northrop Grumman, we don't want to focus on your disability. I want to focus on your abilities. What are those abilities that you bring to the table? And then maximize those abilities while you're here at Northrop Grumman.
I've got a follow-up for you before, Jennifer, I want you to chime in on this. Do you get a sense from people without disabilities that are working for you, for Northrop Grumman, and the support of veterans with disabilities and people with disabilities? Do you get a sense of pride from people who don't have it? Do you think they're proud to work for your company because of this treatment of people?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm a person with a disability and I know I appreciate it, but I can certainly, I tell you what, I meet veterans who have disabilities, self-ID with, a veteran with disabilities, and those who, may not have a disability. And the feedback has always been great, specifically when we're talking about a centralized budget. Again, we're not affecting a manager's budget. They don't have to reallocate money. As long as it's a reasonable accommodation and as long as it coincides with the disability, I'm telling you, I've seen everything you can think of. I'll give you one example really quick. And unfortunately, this one we could not meet, and I'll get to that point. But we had an employee with a service animal who was working in a specific lab where you had to wear almost like a spacesuit. I tell you what, our folks spent weeks and weeks figuring out where can we get a spacesuit for the dog.
That's great.
I'm telling you, that's how important things are to us. And unfortunately, the unfortunate part is they don't make them. I'm sorry to say that. Maybe hopefully someday in the future we'll be able to say, hey, we've accomplished that. But we didn't just push the employee to the side and said, hey, well, sorry, we couldn't help you. We found the employee another position that did not require that employee to work in one of those types of spaces. And guess what? The service animal was with them the entire time. So
that's awesome.
Even when we don't accomplish what we're looking for things out of our control, I am very proud that our company goes above and beyond and really looks out for our employees. Not, as I mentioned, not only employees with disabilities, but all employees altogether.
That's awesome. That's a great story. Jennifer, do you have anything to add with this question?
Sure, I'll take it from the customer vantage point. So we too have a centralized accessibility team and workplace accommodations, not quite as extensive. And I love all the stories that Hish has shared with us both now and in the practice sessions are amazing. But our entire accessibility team that sits in Denver is really focused on the customer experience. And so most recently in partnership with Comcast, we just launched Zumo, and Zumo has a voice activated remote, and that'll allow our customers to be able to get the content they want, when they want, how they want it. And so we look at it from that, but we also look at it from the tools that our employees are having to use. And so one of our billing systems was not able to use a screen reader. And so they've spent the last 2 or 3 years working on updating that so that we could employ individuals that had difficulty with vision. And so that kind of commitment where you're constantly trying to improve your work environment for your employees is really where I think we always want to be.
It's an interesting perspective on accommodation. I was sitting next to a guy named Steve Hanamura, who's a diversity consultant who's blind. And we were talking, and then the subject came up and he nudged me and he said, Luke, are the lights on in this room? And I said, I knew where he was going. I said, yes, Steve, they are. He goes, well, that's an accommodation for you. I don't need the lights. And we had a good laugh, but it is a matter of how you frame this. It is not out of your way to help somebody be productive for your company and in your workplace. It's just an interesting thing to think about how much all of us are accommodated every day in our lives and getting around. It's just about being a human being. Next question. Beyond their disabilities, veterans who may also be dealing with issue of returning to civilian life. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jennifer?
Yeah, so we understand that returning to civilian life and military veterans can be challenging. So after active duty, veterans can find it be difficult to reconnect with family and friends. And so what we try and do is provide them with an opportunity to build on the technical skills they bring to our table and then develop that second career to become part of our charter family. And to me, to us, it's more than just a job, it's a career. So one of the things that we recently launched in August was our partnership with Guild Education. And so anyone that comes to our organization is able to then pursue a degree tuition free. If they want to do a master's degree, there's a tuition reimbursement program for that. And so for me, it's taking care of the whole employee. And we also are incredible about our benefits. We haven't increased our healthcare premium to our employees in 11 years. And I just don't know how many companies can say that. And so it's really taking care of the whole employee.
That's really great. Ish, do you have any thoughts about reentry?
Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned, our information session, right? We try to get the veterans or the transitioning service members, right before they're getting out of the military to really understand what it's like to work at a company like Northrop Grumman. We also offer Skills Bridge at our company, where we bring veterans who are about a year out of active duty military service to come and work for us for about 12 weeks. And they have about a 95% offer for a final job offer for those who are participating in the program. So it's a very, very high number of those who are participating and who eventually transition into Northrop Grumman as full-time employees. Now, additionally, through the Operation Impact program, we offer support in resume. We offer support in identifying a career path. We offer support in mock interviews. Not only that, once they're hired, because I really feel like a lot of companies put emphasis in hiring veterans, and it is important. I'm not going to argue. I'm not saying it is not, but I think they fail to really recognize what it takes to keep a veteran at their company, right? So we've considered that, and we still look at different programs that are out there and different resources that we can offer. A couple that I'd like to talk about. One is we created what we call a newly hired veteran orientation. So it is in addition to your traditional, newly hired employee orientation that your company offers, but this one's veteran specific. We went to our ethics department and we said, what is the number one thing that is getting our veterans, quote unquote, in trouble at our company? And without hesitation, one of my colleagues who was a retired first sergeant from the Air Force, he said, without a doubt, Ish, time cards. He's like, time cards seems to be an issue within our veteran community. Yeah, right. So think about it. When you're in the military, you're on 24/7. You're not punching out. You know what I mean? So especially someone who's been career military, it's kind of hard for them to grasp, why do I have to do a time card? And we remind them why. And again, we use this opportunity to educate them. This is why. These are the differences between the military, the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, et cetera. And this is how we do it at Northrop Grumman. These are the similarities, but now let me draw your attention to some of the key differences within our company. We also have an internal veteran website where we centralize all of our resources, not only internal resources, but external resources. And we're constantly updating. We're constantly being informed of whether it's a government initiative or a nonprofit initiative. We're doing those partnerships, reaching out to those organizations, trying to get educated on what they're offering. And then we're coming back to our veterans and saying, hey, hear about this. And if you need to know where it's at, go to our veteran website. We're not sending them 30 different directions. Go to our veteran website. Everything you need is there. And we're constantly updating as we go. Is it going to solve all of our retention problems with their veterans? No, but it's a great start. And again, and I appreciate that our company really takes emphasis on that we consider that. It's great to hire them, but now let's work even harder to ensure that they stay at Northrop Grumman, as long as they can.
That's awesome. I never would have thought about time cards. I mean, in the Navy, we had a saying, which the brass tried to drill out of us, but the Navy had a saying on Fridays, we would always say to, thank God there's only 2 working days until Monday. That's
Yeah.
every Friday. That was the joke. And the Navy tried to say, don't say that anymore. But that was the attitude, was like, you're here, we're working. But that's
Right.
interesting. Ty, I would never have thought of that.
Right.
Jennifer, do you have any thoughts on the same subject?
Not anything else that I would add to this one. I think
Okay.
that was a really great example.
That brought the time
That
card.
was really great.
Do both of you have a success story you could share with us? Jennifer, we'll start with you for
Sure.
a success story.
Sure. So the veteran that I'd love to feature is Aaron Gutterman. So he's relocated 4 times throughout his throughout his career with Charter. He's a Navy veteran and reservist, and he started as a comms desk repair person. He participated in our Future Leaders program with our field ops team, and is now our senior director of ISP in Kentucky. So he went from St. Louis to California to Wyoming, and now is in Kentucky. And so he got his master's degree using the tuition reimbursement program. And more recently, his son now works for us and is also taking advantage of some of those benefits. So the thing that's also always important to me is that it becomes generational, right? So you're not just impacting one person, you're impacting several people within a family structure. And that's really, really powerful.
That's excellent. Ish, do you have a success story you can share with us? You've given us many so far, but you have one more.
I mean, we have so many to talk about at Northrop Grumman, and I'm going to sound very corny right now, but I just want to share my story real quick. I'm not very successful, but I just want to really draw in, the importance of the program that I now lead, and the above and beyonds that Northrop Grumman does for our veterans. So, as I mentioned, I served in the Army. I was getting medically discharged in 2008 after intending on doing 20 years in the military, and I was like, what do I do now? What exactly do I do now? I have 2 kids. A wife, mortgage, the whole works. So my very first encounter with Northrop Grumman, the recruiter looked at me in the eyes and she said, "What would you like to do?" And I tell you what, that had such an impact on me, because I said, "You mean I have a choice?" I was an infantryman. Again, I was good at kicking doors, going after bad guys. I was very familiar with Northrop Grumman, but I just couldn't understand, how does that translate to a career at Northrop Grumman. I did 5 years in security. I was in executive protection for some of our VPs, including our CEO. I was managing classified spaces, rubbing elbows with high-level VPs within our companies, et cetera. I'm not sharing this story with you to beat my chest and said, I'm great, I'm successful. I'm sharing this story with you that if a person like me, who I felt had very little to offer Northrop Grumman, can make it at Northrop Grumman, anyone can do it. Because our company really goes above and beyond to ensure that we're educating our veterans on what it's like to work at a company like Northrop Grumman. And as I mentioned, once you're here, we do everything that we can to keep you here. As Jennifer mentioned, we also offer an education benefit within our company, right? Where an employee, a veteran can easily go back to school, reinvent themselves. Many veterans do that, right? The statistics are there, it's very high. They go back to school. They don't want to be an infantryman anymore. They want to possibly go into cybersecurity, et cetera. So we offer many, many benefits that anyone can be successful within our company, especially our veterans, who we know have a lot to offer to our company.
Thank you for sharing that, Ish. And I have to tell you, you're a bigger success than you can even imagine, because you help our brothers and sisters achieve personal success. So, man, you're a real successful guy in my eyes. Jennifer, do you have any, wait, we're going to next question. Can you share an example of lessons you have learned along the way? You've provided us with a lot of lessons, Jennifer. Is there one more?
Sure. So I think that the most important lesson to learn is, even if you can't do everything, start small. Like, do one little thing and then let it continue to build. Because the thing I always say, in any of this work that any of us is doing, you're never done. So there's always a way to tweak what you're working on and go back and retool things and things like that. And so, even like during the pandemic, like, we thought, well, what are we going to be able to do now? And that's what we came up with. So sometimes it's, how do I think about this differently? How do I change what it is that I'm trying to solve for? And that's what I would say. Start small.
That's an excellent lesson. Ish,
yeah.
You give us a lot of lessons too. You got one more for us?
A lot of lessons. One thing that I really want to emphasize is an opportunity, especially those who are in a position like me, to really educate people on the misconceptions of veterans. Even within Northrop, I talk to managers where they'll say, "Hey, I have a veteran who seems angry. I think he has PTSD," and I'm like, "Whoa, time out. Let's talk over this." And it's my job to educate them, to get rid of some of those misconceptions, those unconscious bias that they may have on veterans. But it's also an opportunity to educate them on the value that a veteran brings to our company, and some of those, as I mentioned, some of those great values and assets that veterans that we all know have within them. So I think I spend a lot of time doing that, educating people on what we're all about, what we bring to the table, and more importantly, how can we support our veterans? Because again,
that's a never-ending process.
It's a never-ending. It's
never-ending.
Never-ending. Yeah, it's an everyday thing.
So I'm back, Luke. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank Jennifer and Ish for everything today. You guys really gave well, and this was an excellent session. I learned something. I truly enjoyed speaking with you both too. Thank you so much for spending your time this way.
Thank you.
Well, now we have a lot of questions from the audience that we have been trying to get through. And Luke, I'm sure that some of these are meant for you as well. Yeah. So always love your insights. This question, though, is for Jennifer that we're starting out with. It says, what has been the best source to recruit and hire those who self-identify as a disabled veteran for Charter? And have there been accolades to highlight your success in this effort?
So I wouldn't be able to see, like, we actually don't expose self-ID information to the recruiters for lots of reasons. So I wouldn't necessarily be able to answer that question as specifically as probably you would like. The sources that we find most valuable is we actually establish partnerships between different organizations. And then we have 6 different bases where we have those military outreach specialists that are military spouses. And so that's where I'd say that's how we create the top end of the funnel. And then the next step is actually facilitating office hours with our military recruiting team, where they can schedule that on our career site. The other thing we also have that's self-service on the career site, not specifically just for veterans, but for any candidate, is it's a personality assessment tool called Fit Finder. And it allows the person to indicate their preferences, and it recommends 5 different jobs to them that they could consider. And one of the things we didn't try and do as part of this was we actually improved our gender diversity on our field technicians and our direct sales roles, because simply we were suggesting to women, you could be a field technician. And so I think the other thing too is if you're still solving a problem, you still find a different outcome on the backside of that if you're doing it in an inclusive way, is what I would say.
That's a great story.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I think one of the questions that we did have was around the topic of men versus women veterans, and if you see a difference in their self-ID rates, if you track it that way.
We don't track it that way.
Ish, do you have any insight there?
We do track it that way. We do. In fact, we break it down even by branch of service, reservists, National Guardsmen, etc. I only know this because I've completed many surveys that ask those specific questions. What percentage of your veteran population is female and male, etc. So definitely, that's something that we do track.
Fantastic. Thank you. What's the main reason? We've heard that you obviously have a fantastic self-ID rate, but what are some of the reasons why people do not want to self-identify? And I'd love to hear from all of you on this. Ish, do you want to start us off?
Okay, sure. As I mentioned, it's the one thing, the common denominator is what's in it for me. Why do I have to do it? What difference does it make? And in some instances, some employees, some veterans, I should say, really feel like it could be used against them, right? If I self-ID as someone with a disability, does that then limit my ability to have upper mobility within the company, or does that limit my ability to obtain gainful employment if I decide to go to a different position, et cetera? And going back to some of my previous points, that's an opportunity for us to educate them, right? As Jennifer mentioned, this information is tightly held. It's like classified TSSCI, you know what I mean? It's just very very tightly held. It's not accessible to many people within our company. And again, it's once we educate them on what it's used for, they get that aha moment and they're like, okay. But again, it's a personal choice. I've talked to veterans who say, you know what, Ish, that's awesome. I appreciate it, but I'd rather just kind of keep it to myself. That's okay. No pressure. Again, it's a personal choice.
Absolutely. Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
I think the thing I was going to add was I think there's a fear of what the data is going. I mean, now we're getting into the realm of privacy, right? And I think that people more and more are very, very concerned about how is this data going to be used? Why are you asking me this data? Because, you know, we've gotten into this world of digital marketing and targeting people and things like that. And so I think that's the biggest fear in today's world. I also think it has something to do with simply people scooting through paperwork quickly, right? When you're trying to do your onboarding paperwork, sometimes you're just skipping through it and you might miss it and not do it on purpose. I can't tell you the number of times I've had conversations with veterans who, when I tell them to go look up their status, they're not coded. And so sometimes that is like one of the most simple ways you can get your veterans, you know, self-ID back up, because if it's in the system, but they have to look it up. Like I can't look it up for them. So that's what I would add.
It's a great answer.
And Luke, did you have anything you wanted to add there?
I just, you know, I think to me, it's trust. That if you don't have trust in who's asking you the question, you're not going to provide an answer. And I think that we sometimes think that we're more trustworthy than other people think that we are as employers. And so there's a constant need to re-educate and a constant need to re-inform and a constant need to be transparent. And I think those things are often missing in the workplace.
Absolutely. And if I may, you used an example of this trust as far as our veterans are concerned when we did our run through, Luke, with being a helicopter pilot. Would you mind sharing that again?
Yeah, I think I feel a level of trust when I meet a fellow veteran because I know that there's a bond and a relationship. And I was a helicopter pilot and I flew search and rescue. And Ish and I are many years apart in age. We never would have served at the same time. He's much younger than I am. But if I had been there and he called and he was in trouble, I'd have come and gotten him. I don't care what I was doing, what else was going on, whatever I had to do. And he knew that getting on that radio would likely bring help, unless it was impossible, that somebody would come and get him out. I worked for a guy who had a Navy Cross. He was a young Lieutenant JG in Vietnam flying search and rescue off a barge. And the rules were after dark, you couldn't go over land. Well, he got a emergency PRC 90 call from a guy who was shot down. A7 pilot was shot down. He's in a rice paddy. He was surrounded on 3 sides and he was going to be captured. And so my CO flew in over the rice paddy and picked him up, got the helicopter shot full of holes, but nobody was severely injured. And those guys had dinner once a year, every year from then on. But the thing is, he's flying, he's there. Of course he's going to go get him. And whatever, going to get in trouble later, going to get in trouble later. Right now, there's somebody who needs me to get them out of trouble. And so that's, I think that bond with veterans is there, and companies miss a trick by not realizing that and leveraging it. Because when you feel you're in a trusted environment, that bond multiplies in value because we support each other. And then you support the other people who are not necessarily veterans if you're in that kind of environment. So employers need to understand there's such power in this. And there's enough of us out there that this could really be leveraged for, your company's benefit. And it helps the veterans. Everybody wins.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really found that to be very impactful from a trust perspective, right? That's how we've come through the military, is with that level of trust in each other. So thank you so much for sharing that. One additional question I think we have time for is people really are interested in understanding the centralized accommodation process. What did it take to centralize that, as well as how is it funded? So Jennifer, did you want to start with that?
So we have a centralized core HR function that sits actually in the same building I am. So it does all the onboarding, the accommodations process. And so it is a distinct and separate group of HR professionals that are specifically trained on those different areas. So whether it's accommodations, leave, those different things. And so that's the way it's been set up since our post-merger in 2016. So that's the way we just operate. And so that's part of our CHRO's budget. It's not, I mean, obviously it rolls to the entire organization at some point, but that eliminates any questions in terms of support, because then it's managed from a metrics perspective at the organization level, not by business unit.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, when I joined the company in 2008 and they did my ergonomic assessment, I remember the lady said, you're going to need an ergo chair, and among other things. And she sent the information to my manager. My manager came to me later that day and he said, Ish, I understand you need this chair. I understand you need all this equipment. He's like, and I'm telling you, he's like, I'm working on it. He's like, I just have to reallocate my budget a little bit. He's like, give me a few weeks and I'll get you this chair. Those days are long gone. Again, we have a centralized program that's been launched since 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Its own budget. Every sector has a representative. It has a director. And again, anything that's workplace accommodations related, whether it's LGBTQ plus transition, whether it's religious as well, and of course, anything with a disability or perhaps a knee surgery like myself, something that's more not long term, more short term. Everything gets centralized. There's a form that takes like 3 minutes to complete. A person's on the phone with you shortly after, going through that form, figuring out exactly what you're looking for. And then we make those connections. If a person needs an ergonomic evaluation, we have those professionals within our company that do that. Everything's internal, very seamless. And more importantly, once the item or the accommodation is then identified, it is quickly implemented. Again, that's the whole point. Again, leveling that playing field. And again, no discussion on, well, this is going to cost the company or your program X amount of money. Everything is within our program. And again, it's its own entity and it sits within HR as well.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Sure.
One person did ask too, what resistance do you meet from within the organization, and how do you overcome that? We all didn't start at this, at this level of engagement and level of support. So what are what is some of the resistance that you may have engaged with and had to overcome? How about you, Jennifer?
Yes, so I think that going back to the education piece is always critical in terms of making sure hiring managers that did not serve in the military understand how to conduct interviews, how to interpret resumes. And so we've created some of those trainings along the way. And so that is one of the resistances that we sometimes face. But to me, like that's an easy one to overcome. I also think that there's, from time to time, you have competing priorities from a business. And so the more you root yourself in data and facts, the better you can defend whatever it is that you're doing. So like that's the way I tend to operate. And that I think has bode well for us from a success perspective.
Thank you for that, Jennifer. Absolutely. Ish.
One thing I hear a lot is, not a lot, but I do hear from time to time is, why do we need to hire more veterans? We're doing so well. Like, why do we keep insisting on hiring more veterans? And as Jennifer mentioned, that's an opportunity, right? For us to educate whomever's asking that question. And more importantly, educate them on where the job market, where it's at right now, right? How competitive it is right now. Everyone's fighting for the same talent. I can't tell you how many conferences I've been to, and it's like, everyone's fighting for, that handful of folks who are available to join the workforce. So again, it's an opportunity for me not only to speak of, some of the things I mentioned previously, but even that, talk about, hey, let's look at the job market right now. We need to be innovative and we want to maintain that competitive edge. So this is why manager or HR director or whomever, this is why it is so important for us to still put some emphasis in hiring veterans. Not to mention we're a defense contractor, right? A lot of our contracts are clear contracts. Guess what? A lot of folks in the military have a clearance. It's a marriage made in heaven. It's like, it's a no-brainer. So again, a lot of times it's just a simple opportunity to educate that manager or that employee, and it really goes a long way.
That's fantastic. Well, that is going to be our last word, unless, Luke, you have anything that you would like to add before we close up and just provide some additional information about some other things that will be happening at NOD.
I want to just thank everybody who joins us today, especially Jennifer and Ish. Thank you so much for your participation and great comments. It was really a great conversation. I deeply appreciate. We've helped our fellow veterans out with this webinar today.
This was amazing. Really, thank you so
Really
much.
was. I also
It
want to
was.
thank our sponsors, Charter Communications and Northrop Grumman, who made this possible. And then, Felicia, you have other announcements to share?
We do. We wanted to just let everyone know that in addition to the employment tracker that will be opening the first week of December and it closes mid-March, we will also have, well, we do have an engagement survey that companies can take advantage of. It would be a really nice complement to, after you complete the tracker, to then launch an engagement survey for your employees to see both sides and really understand what's happening. Do our employees feel the same as we see with our implementation and with the strategy? We also have some reports that are available here. Disability in the Workplace Insights report that is talking about the results and what we are seeing from the tracker and the data, really looking at leaders and why leaders make such a difference in organizations as far as disability inclusion is concerned. And then we have our disability in the workplace toolkit, which we do every year with FAIR 360. It is a great tool for companies to use from a roadmap perspective and awareness. So really want to make those tools available to everyone, and they are available to everyone. You can get them on our website, as well as you can go ahead and contact us if you are interested in receiving more information. Want to again thank everyone for participating today. We had a huge response, and if I do say so, I'm telling you, our webinars are just getting better and better. This was an amazing, just packed with information for companies, and I'm so thankful and so grateful that we were able to do this. And again, thank you, Luke, for leading this.
Thank you, Felicia. We did a great job. NOD, we did a great job. And thank you for your leadership. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.